Call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, we are very pleased on this Tuesday, February 18th, to have Vicar Chris Clark from Christ Lutheran Church in Germantown, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 4th District. Please rise for the invocation.
I invite you all to join me in prayer. Let us pray. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, we give thanks to you for this day and for all of the abundant blessings of this life that you continually bestow upon us. From you comes all rule and authority over the nations of the world. We ask that you graciously regard your servants, those who make, administer, and judge the laws of our state and country, to look upon them with mercy and guide them in the public professions in which they serve. Enlighten and defend them. Grant them wisdom and understanding so that they would not seek selfish gain or be torn by partisan politics, but they would serve their constituents according to your good and gracious will. Lord, we pray that by your hand their governance would be peaceable for all peoples, and that we may be guarded and directed in righteousness, quietness, unity, and peace. Protect and prolong their lives, that we with them may show forth the praise of your name. It is in your holy name that we pray. Amen.
Recognized Senator from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. President. So what many of you don't realize is I have a love for woodworking and building things, and I actually had the opportunity to meet Chris and his lovely family through that love and his farm in Montgomery County. U.S. Army Major Chris Clark grew up in McLean, Virginia, and joined the active duty Army in 2004. He has served for nearly 21 years and is currently stationed at Fort Meade with the National Security Agency. His career has taken him around the world with assignments in England, Germany, Korea, Afghanistan, Hawaii, Australia, Arizona, and Fort Meade, obviously the most cherished one. Chris and his wife Jessica are high school sweethearts and homeschool their 4 children, Gianna, Sophia, Christopher, and Anya. If you all would please stand. And in his free time, he attends the American Lutheran Theological Seminary and serves as a vicar at Christ Lutheran Church in Germantown, Maryland. After retiring from the Army in the coming years, Chris hopes to continue serving his country and community both in government and as an ordained Lutheran pastor. If you would, please give them all a warm Senate welcome. Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you for your service, both pastorally as well as to the country. Thank you very much. All right, has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? Excuse me, and without objections, we will journalize the vicar's wonderful invocation this morning. Has everyone now recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. We have several guests. We're going to do this. We're going to go through our resolutions first, and then we're going to ask the secretary to join us. So let's start with our resolutions and move those along. We're so pleased to be able to welcome some folks. We have the senator from District 12. We have the National Alliance on Mental Illness today. Is that correct? Wonderful. Yes. Recognize the senator from Howard and Ann Rundle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that our departed colleague from District 8 would recognize this every year as part of the National Alliance for Mental Health. And this year, the Alliance is recognizing Tardive dyskinesia, which is a chronic involuntary movement disorder that affects millions throughout the country. This is a disorder that leads to involuntary movements of the face, mouth, tongue, and limbs. But it's important for us as a community and as a state to recognize those who may have tardive dyskinesia, to be able to support them as well. And so on this recognition of National Alliance on Mental Health Day, we do want to bring in 2 individuals who are representing the tardive dyskinesia community. We have Carla Kiriakou and Denise Evans here to receive this floor citation. And so I ask that the chamber join me in recognizing them to address efforts for tardive dyskinesia as well as mental health throughout the state of Maryland. Thank you so much.
All right, the clerk will read the resolution.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to National Alliance on Mental Health in recognition of your efforts to promote the importance of tardive dyskinesia through screening, early detection, and treatment, and recognizing May 5th through May 9th as Tardive Dyskinesia Awareness Week. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 18th day of February 2025.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. The Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates the National Alliance on Mental Health, NAMI, for tardive dyskinesia awareness, and thank you for your effort for this important awareness activity. Thank you so much. All right, let's recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take a point of personal privilege before I do this.
Senator, may proceed.
You have before you my friend Jolie McCatherine, and she is here representing the Big Tree program, but she gets kudos from me because she's been my campaign treasurer for 25 years, which is not an easy job. So thank you. Yeah. Okay, Mr. President and colleagues, in 1925, Maryland's first state forester, Fred W. Beasley, saw an interest in identifying large trees of all species. Mr. Beasley devised standards of measuring trees that included the trunk circumference, crown spread, and the height of the tree. With the help of the Maryland Forestry Association, a contest was held and prizes were offered, and in that first year, the statewide Maryland Big Tree Champion Contest had a total of 450 entries containing 155 different species. Among the champions that very first year was the Y oak, the largest white oak ever recorded. The Big Tree program went national in 1940 and continues today. Each state has a state coordinator who collects data, measures trees, and submits them as potential national champions. For 100 years, volunteers for the Maryland Big Tree Committee have worked tirelessly to locate and recognize Maryland's largest trees of every species known, common and uncommon, and we congratulate them on their centennial. Mr. President, we have a resolution.
Clerk will read the resolution in full.
be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Maryland Big Tree Program in recognition of 100 years of service, providing awareness, knowledge, and appreciation for Maryland's largest trees. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 18th day of February 2025.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. The Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates Maryland's Big Tree Program and thanks our folks from DNR and the incredible work to celebrate our incredible tree canopy. Thank you so much. All right, we are still waiting for a third resolution. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and, actually, we just made it here, quick pause. All right, yes, let's recognize the senator from the chair of the Prince George's County delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. Some of you all may remember this young man. He served with us over in the House. Speaking of which, Mr. President, if I might, it's at least 14 members who came over from the House who were in the same class. We got elected in 2014. We served in the Senate, and currently, just for the record, out of that class is 16 members that are here from that class. So we all rode the bus together, as we like to say. But I can tell you it's a terrific honor today, and this is what the General Assembly produces. Upstanding, diligent, empathetic folks who are about the business of protecting the interests of the state of Maryland. And there's no more recognition, and there's no more recognition that we can say about someone other than our colleague, Erek Barron, who I had the opportunity and the pleasure to sit beside on the floor and serve within the Prince George's County House delegation. So the Prince George's County delegation is extremely proud, as the rest of us are here as well, to recognize him and his service as the first African-American U.S. Attorney for the state of Maryland. That is a phenomenal feat, but it always has to be one to get it started. So if we could have the resolution read, and I'd like for the members of the delegation to join us up front.
Clerk will read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Erek Barron in recognition of your service to the state and nation as Maryland's first African American to serve as United States Attorney. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 18th day of February, 2025.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, Chair in explaining his vote after we take a picture. Excellent. Just want to personally thank Mr. Barron for his incredible service to the state of Maryland. Truly historic service, but most importantly, unbelievably effective service. Just truly, truly unbelievable what's happened. The coordination and partnership that we had. I was very sad to see the note that he was leaving the office, but just very, very thankful for his incredible work. Has everyone recorded their vote? So the clerk will take the call. As is clear, the Senate of Maryland unanimously thanks Erek Barron for his incredible and historic service as the U.S. Attorney. Congratulations, sir. All right, all right. It's like the low stragglers here. All right. All right, we got a lot of business to do. We got a lot of, let's get moving here. Excellent. Okay, thank you all. All right, excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We had to touch base after. All right, let's go ahead. Now we will move forward to our, as folks know, we have one of the most important duties of the Senate that distinguishes us from the other chamber and from our role as senators is the role of advising consent of the executive's appointments. And so this being the day of the green bag, we'd like to invite the Secretary of Appointments up to the rostrum to present the governor's appointments.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Green Bag Day. Senate President Ferguson, Executive Nominations Committee Chair Lamb, and Maryland Senators. In this green bag, we have the names of over 200 nominations for Senate confirmation. These appointees are not only high-caliber individuals, but they are representative of the rich diversity of the state of Maryland. I'd also like to acknowledge the governor's appointments team who is here in the audience today and all the hard work that they've done on this year's appointments. There you go.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're going to see a lot of each other on Monday nights. It's going to be a nice and busy year. Excellent. All right. Well, now that we have the appointments there and having been received, we will refer them to the Executive Nominations Committee. We appreciate the Appointments Office, the Secretary, and the entire administration for the work that we continue to do to make sure that we have the best possible people in service to the state of Maryland. So thank you to the Appointments Office. Thank you, Madam Secretary. And onwards we go into the 40s. Yes, recognize the senator from the Lower Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would this be the appropriate time for an introduction in the gallery?
Just one moment. For those who would like to say, please, we're going to continue into our business. More than welcome to stay. Everyone is more than welcome to stay, but I know everyone is busy, so if folks have to move along, please feel free. But we thank you so much, and we're going to see lots and lots of you moving forward. All right. Yes, Senator from the 38th, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like my colleagues to join me. We have two special guests, if they will stand up, Holly Ortel and Sandy Stevens, behind the Senate President. And they are two dedicated fire safety protection and EMS public servants. Excellent. And Sandy is a retired Baltimore County paramedic. And Holly Ortel, my constituent, is a longtime member of the Pittsville Volunteer Fire Department. She formerly served fire rescue EMS in Baltimore County. She was the first female since 1956 to achieve the rank of chief. And last year, she served as the 2024 president of the Wicomico County Firefighters Association. And I'm delighted that they made the trip up. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your public service.
Welcome, and thank you for being here with us. Senator from District 1, Western Maryland.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I do appreciate you allowing me to initiate on this day. I just created this, but I do believe it's the Pages Past Day, and my son, Matthew McKay, who was a page in this in the Senate last year, is up here and wanted to say hello to everybody.
Welcome.
For Pages Past Day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Excellent. Hopefully he paid his dues. Yeah. Yes, Senator from the 42nd District, followed by the Senator from the 43rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our doctor of the day is Dr. Ahmet Kalaria. Dr. Kalaria is the chairman of the radiology department at St. Joseph's Medical Center in Towson. Dr. Kalaria, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for being here with us. Thanks for your service. Senator from Baltimore City and County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is Independent Higher Education Day. You may know that we have 13 colleges and universities that are independent, private institutions, and we have students here from all over the state to thank us for the Seliger program, which is a program funded by the state of Maryland to enable young people from underrepresented, first generation communities to attend college and to get tuition. I'm particularly honored that I represent 3 of those institutions, and there are 4 here today, one where I actually teach. There are students from the Maryland Institute College of Art, Loyola University of Maryland, Notre Dame of Maryland University, and Goucher College. If you're in the gallery, please stand up and we'll welcome you. Oh, there you go. A warm Senate welcome. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you to the students from MICUA, and keep up the great work. Senator from the Capital City.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, today we are joined by representatives from Leadership Anne Arundel. In the gallery, we have the board chair, Derek Matthews. We also have the executive director, Chris Schock. If they'll stand so you all could recognize Leadership Anne Arundel. Thank you.
Welcome to Leadership Anne Arundel. Senator from Charles County.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as I mentioned yesterday, today is HBCU Shadow Day here in Annapolis. And my shadow in the gallery is University of Maryland student Ryan Maddox. He's a biomedical student, so welcome. Okay. And I have a second group here, also in the gallery from Charles County, is the National Coalition of Black Women of Southern Maryland.
Ah, very good.
Please.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you. Good to see you. Yes, Senator from the 43rd.
Thank you. Mr. President, I have an additional academic reference today. Today we are joined by 60 Towson University students. They are part of our Law and Public Policy program, which focuses their academic coursework, leadership opportunities, and extracurricular involvement in real-world experience. Here they are, our Towson High School students. Welcome them.
Welcome.
A warm Senate welcome.
A little bit of democracy in action. Welcome. Hope you learned something today. Very good. All right, any further introductions? If not, so we consider the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We're going to start with our second readers here. So let's go to finance. Are we ready, finance, for second readers? Let's go to calendar number 5. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 5, Senator Lamb, Maryland Health Benefit Exchange, State-Based Youth Adult Health Insurance Subsidies Pilot Program, Sunset Repeal.
Recognizing the bill sponsors, the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 5 makes permanent the state-based Youth Adult Subsidies Program, Young Adult Subsidies Program. This program provides annual subsidies to young adults to buy health insurance from the state exchange who meet specified eligibility criteria. This pilot was established a couple years ago in 2021 and extended to 2025. The program status is being changed from, quote, authorizing, and the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange is prohibited from implementing the program if special funds are not available. The program receives funds from the state's reinsurance programs fund, whose revenues come from an assessment on insurance carriers. There are no amendments. The special fund revenues and expenditures are maintained by making the program permanent. Move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 5 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 94, Senator Ellis, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Self-Measured Blood Pressure Monitoring, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsors, the floor leader.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 94 is another in our series of maternal health bills that we've passed over the last few years to improve the health of our mothers and babies. This past September, you, Mr. President, nominated me to go to a Black Maternal Health Summit in Richmond, Virginia. At that summit, I met these researchers from Johns Hopkins University who were researching maternal health. They told me very startling statistics that 80% of postpartum after delivery problems happen because of high blood pressure. They were researching it. They had a clinic in Washington, D.C. I said, there's something we could do here in the state of Maryland. So working with our bill drafters, attorneys, and Maryland Department of Health, we came up with this bill which will provide blood pressure cups, inexpensive, to women going through their entire birthing process. We work with the Maryland Department of Health, and we worked it into existing resources, so there is no fiscal note because we amended the bill to take out something that would be very expensive as far as education campaign and paying community health workers. So this is very neutral fiscally, and 2 amendments, strike education campaign and reporting requirements. And Mr. President, I move the amendments and the adoption of a favorable committee report.
Thank you, Senator. Senator moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Recognize the floor leader has an amendment.
Yes, Mr. President, I have an amendment.
Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. Senator, just give us a moment to put it on the board. This page crew's first amendment distribution. Feel free to just kind of toss it. No real risk other than a paper cut. Yeah. Senators sometimes get very focused in on reading the bill on their computers, so deadly. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, if you look at the bill title on the board, it says nothing about maternal health. I believe that should be in the title, so this amendment simply adds these 2 words to the title of the bill, maternal health. Mr. President, I move the amendment.
Senator moves the amendment. Are there any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 94 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Thank you very much. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 372, Senator Bidel, Preserve Telehealth Access Act of 2025, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. You all may remember when we had used telehealth during COVID, we allowed that you could do audio only, and the sunset for that was expiring. So all this bill really does is extends the sunset that we can do audio only telehealth. It actually makes it permanent. And so Amendment 1 adds sponsors and is technical. Amendment 2 requires the Maryland Healthcare Commission to study and report on telehealth technology every 4 years. There's no material physical impact. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 372 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 413, Senator Waldstreicher, Consumer Protection, Consumer Contracts, Limitations Periods, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognized Senator from Queen Anne's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 413 establishes that a provision in a consumer contract that sets a shorter period of time to bring an action arising from the contract than required by state law when the contract is issued or delivered is against state policy, illegal, and void. The bill only applies prospectively. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 excludes certain consumer contracts and entities from application of the Act and delays the effective date until June 1st, 2026. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 413 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to Budget and Tax. This is calendar number 3. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 194, Chair, Budget and Taxation, State Finance and Procurement, State Leasing of Real Property, favorable.
Recognizing Senator from Montgomery as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If we could just special order Senate Bill 194 to the appropriate time on Thursday.
On Thursday. Any objections to the special order? Without objection, the bill is special ordered to the appropriate time on Thursday. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 196, Chair, Budget and Taxation Committee, Procurement, Electronic Transactions, Clarification of Fees Due, favorable.
Recognized Senator from Montgomery as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 196 is really just clarifying government transparency around electronic procurement, just making sure that fees collected go into the Operations Revenue Fund. There's no amendments. I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 196 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 330, Senator Jackson, Property Tax Credit, Senator M. Jackson, Property Tax Credit, Disabled or Fallen Law Enforcement Officer or Rescue Worker alterations, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the good senator, we are still working on the IT issue on the board. It's correct in the system, but when it gets printed for third is apparently when it will be fixed. So, recognizing the good senator from the 27th district.
Thank you for the recognition, Madam Clerk. Senate President, Senate Bill 30 is identical to the bill that passed this chamber last year unanimously. It makes changes to the local option property tax credit for disabled or fallen law enforcement officers or rescue workers. There was 1 committee report, a committee amendment. Move adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 330 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 344, Senator Brooks, Property Tax Credit, Retail Service Station Conversions, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognized Senator from District 7 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill deals with gas stations, specifically when they go out of business and they've closed down, and if they can't be revitalized, sometimes they'll be sitting there derelict for a while. Investors, it costs them too much to revitalize it, mainly because of the cost of the underground tanks to bring them out of the ground and take those hydrocarbons out of the soil. This is a way that the local counties can try to help get that station revitalized, get it back into the the economy and allows the local government to grant a property tax credit to hopefully redevelop it. It does not allow for some type of discount store. Those are stores that have the majority of their inventories below $5, or self-storage facilities. There were two amendments. One was technical, and the other strikes shall and substitute may for the purpose of state funds for reimbursement. With that, Mr. President, I move favorable on the amendments in the report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 344 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. This one's actually a really big issue. Ferguson SO in College Park, to deal with before they could sell it, was a huge problem getting the tanks and figuring out what to do. So, real issue. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 358, Senator King, Maryland Deaf Culture Digital Library Funding and Budget Submission, favorable.
Recognizing the bill sponsors, the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 358 requires the governor to include $450,000 for the Maryland Deaf Culture Digital Library in the annual budget bill beginning in fiscal 2026, and requires the library to submit its annual operating budget to the Maryland State Library Agency each year. There are no committee amendments, and I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 358 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 502, Senator Corderman, Property Tax Credit for Law Enforcement Officer or Rescue Worker Expansion to Judicial Officer, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the bill sponsors, the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 502 expands the local option tax credit to include judicial officers, also to clean up to add correction officers back in there as well. The bill is retroactive to tax year 2023. There was one committee amendment to add sponsors. Move the adoption of the amendment in favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment in the favorable committee report. On the amendment, chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much. I had a question for the sponsor.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. I was looking through the bill and I was just wondering, what is a judicial officer? It doesn't seem to be defined within the bill.
Judicial officer would be, judges, magistrates, courts, district court judges. I believe that's defined in many of the things that you see in your committee.
Could it be an attorney? Attorneys are officers of the court, so I'm just trying to understand the intent, or if this is something that's simply for judges.
My understanding, it's to those individuals that are actually the court officers themselves, not the attorneys, but more the judges, the magistrates, that nature.
Is there a definition in code, currently in code? For what a
I believe there
officer
is. We can get that back to you if you'd like us to, if it's not defined in there. But yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Does the senator want to lay the bill over till we?
No, I trust I'll get the information. I'm not trying to slow anything down.
Okay.
I just wanted to make certain that I knew what we were talking about. Thank
All
you.
right. Let's, okay, so question remains on the amendment. Any discussion, further discussion on the amendment? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Are there any now on the amended report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 502 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 603, Senator Zucker, University of Maryland, College Park Campus, TERPS Exceed Program, funding, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 603 is involving the TERPS Exceed program. It's a higher ed program out of the University of Maryland that helps those with developmental disabilities team up with students to have an all-inclusive experience. This is, it authorizes but does not mandate the governor include money in the operating budget. Mr. President, with things being tough with the budget, this is hopeful, but we're not mandating that the governor include this. So there was no opposition to the bill. There's one committee amendment. It adds all members of Budget and Taxation to the bill. I move the committee amendment and adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, Senator, if we don't mind, I think this is students who are shadowing from University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Just as they're headed, do we have, I think, the UMES shadows? Are they still with us? Excellent. All right, if we could please give them a warm Senate welcome. Welcome to UMES. Welcome. And our good colleague, former Senator Jim Mathias here shepherding shadows around today. Thank you. Thank you. All right, question is on the one committee amendment. Any discussion of the amendment? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 603 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill. Oh, is that it on that one? That does it. Let's go to judicial proceedings. Calendar number 8. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 44, Senator Carrozza, reckless and negligent driving, death of another, must appear violation, Sherry and Christian's law, favorable.
Recognized Senator from the 42nd District is floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill simply specifies that a person charged with a reckless or negligent driving offense that contributes to an accident resulting in the death of another must appear in court and may not prepay the fine. The committee's vote was unanimous. There was no opposition. There are no committee amendments, so I hereby move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 44 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 381, Senator Love, Motor Vehicles Automated Enforcement Programs Privacy Protection, favorable with 4 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, in the state of Maryland, we have a number of automated enforcement programs. We have speed cameras, we have red light cameras, we have school bus cameras, and many, many more. What we do not have is a statewide system of how that data is used and protected. So SB 381 sets up a system of access, retention, and destruction of that data. The committee has 4 amendments. Amendment number 1 adds the good senators from District 4, District 1, District 20, and District 44 as co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 is technical. Amendment number 3 establishes the procedures for law enforcement agencies who own and retain that data to access and use the images. And amendment number 4 alters the time frame by which agencies are required to dispose of the recorded images. Move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 4 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognizing the senator from the 45th District? Afternoon. All right, on the amendments, any discussion of the amendments? Committee amendments with any objections? Without objection, the 4 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report, recognizing the senator from the 45th District.
I got it.
On the report, it has an amendment. Okay, let's do the report really quickly. On the amended report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Senator has an amendment for the bill. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. Give us just a moment to get it distributed.
I ain't making no noise, man.
All right, Senator May. Senator May described this very controversial and complex amendment.
It is very controversial and complex. Mr. Senate President, I had a number of bills that came through JPR that dealt with this subject, and I got to learn a significant amount from my colleague, and I felt very much clued in, locked in, to go on as a sponsor to this bill. So thank you to the sponsor, and look forward to this good bill that's passed with Senate Bill 381. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Senator moves the amendment.
Yes.
Any objections to the amendment?
We consider that a friendly amendment. Thank you to the sponsor of the amendment.
Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments? Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one more amendment. that the pages are handing out right now.
Excellent. Pages will distribute the senator's amendment. Give us just a moment, make sure it's the right one. All right, Senator May, describe the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment sets an upper limit on the retention of data that law enforcement is trying to finish the adjudication of, but they are not able to. Move the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Yes, recognizing the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the sponsor of the bill yield for a question?
Will Senator yield? Senator may proceed.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is a great bill. I love privacy and records retention laws. That's great. On page 5, lines 25 and 26, could you just explain the committee's thought on whether $1,000 for a law enforcement agency was going to be sufficient disincentive and for making sure that this is complied with?
So that actually came.
And how does that compare to elsewhere in the code? Is that seen as an effective amount?
So we actually didn't have a whole lot of discussion on that in this chamber. We discussed it. This is the second time around this bill has been with us. We did discuss it in the Environment and Transportation Committee, and we determined that that was a sufficient penalty.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 381 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 513, Senator Henson, Real Property Unlawfully Restricted Covenant Modifications, County or Municipality, Notice Requirements, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this body has done a lot of great work to reform deeds that have unlawful restrictive covenants. Unlawful restrictive covenants are those ones that discriminate on the basis of race, religion, or national origin. This bill is a continuation of that work. What it does is it gives additional opportunities for notice. It reforms that, making sure that notice could be given by newspaper, by posting at the courthouse, or on the official website. There are 2 committee amendments to the bill. The First Amendment adds sponsors. The Second Amendment reduces those notices to simply giving notice in the newspaper or the official website. Move the amendments, Mr. President.
Senator moves the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 513 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 540, Senator Charles, Common Ownership Communities, Recreational Common Areas, Sensitive Information as Condition for Access, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. What this bill does is it prohibits co-ops, condominium associations, HOAs from requiring certain sensitive information such as social security cards, birth certificates, racial or ethnic origin in order for you to have access to playgrounds, swimming pools, rec rooms, or lounges. This bill has 1 amendment, and that amendment adds sponsors from the committee. Move the amendments.
All right, the senator moves the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 540 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 548, Senator James, Family Law, Child Custody Terminations, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill collects in 1 statute all the factors courts use in determining child custody. It's really what I would call a good government bill, making it easier for our constituents to know what all the factors are in determining child custody, which is in the best interest of the child. There is 1 amendment, adding all the members of the JPR committee, and not surprisingly, the bill received unanimous support, so I move the committee amendment and the favorable report of the committee.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 548 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, that does it there. Let's see. We have another judicial proceeding, second reader. Report number 9. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 81, Senator Kagan, Criminal Law Interference with a Public Safety Answering Point, Penalties, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the Senator from Baltimore County is the floor leader.
Thank you very much. This is a very simple but yet very important bill that makes it a felony for cyber attacks to occur on our 911 centers. There were 2 amendments. The first was technical. The other strikes a provision in the bill. Mr. President, I move for the favorable committee amendment, the committee report with amendment.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 81 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 326, Senator Waldstreicher, Public Safety, Law Enforcement Agencies, Peer Support Programs, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago, we passed confidential, free peer support for our hero firefighters. This takes that law and mimics it word for word for our hero law enforcement officers. There is 1 committee amendment. The amendment adds sponsors. Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report and the 1 committee amendment.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 326 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 443, Senator Smith, Trafficking, Regulated Firearms, Felony Classification, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Over the course of the last decade, 2/3 of the crime guns found in Maryland were actually illegally trafficked from out of state. So as amended, this bill reclassifies from a misdemeanor to a felony the prohibition against trafficking of a regulated firearm to the state for the purposes of unlawfully selling or trafficking that firearm. The amended bill also alters the applicable statute of limitations for the offense to allow for prosecution anytime. There are 2 amendments, Mr. President. 1 is technical, and number 2 alters the statute of limitations. I'd move for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 443 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 444, Senator Smith, Public Safety, Gun Buyback Programs, Destruction of Firearms, favorable with 2 amendments.
A lucky 444. Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill establishes requirements for a gun buyback program and provides penalties for violations of those requirements. A federally licensed firearm dealer or law enforcement agency that violates these requirements is subject to a fine not exceeding $10,000, and a person who conducts a gun buyback program in violation of this bill's provisions is guilty of a misdemeanor and on conviction subject to a maximum of $10,000 fine. There are 2 committee amendments, Mr. President. Number 1 is technical, and number 2 alters the definition of a gun buyback program. I'd move for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Did the amendments deal with some of the objections that folks testified against the bill, saying that somebody who sells a gun to a gun buyback could be violating certain parts of the code? I was just reading through the testimony.
No, yes. So we adopted those committee amendments. They came from the chiefs and sheriffs, and those amendments concerned guns that were either part of an investigation or crime guns, and they wanted to make sure that law enforcement, that is, wanted to make sure that they were able to hold on to those firearms until the end of the investigation before complying with the requirements of the bill.
So if, okay, good, that's good. I was curious also, this is dealing with, I'm trying to understand, so is there any mandate in here about destroying them, or why can law enforcement that pays things not repurpose them or sell them, or
So-
why do they have to destroy? I mean, I know some of the guns they get are not really usable, right? But can you just comment on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So just it's an anti-trafficking bill, but one of the reasons why you didn't see any opposition was that this is kind of the standard practice anyway, all across the state. This is just codifying that, but the goal is to ensure that every component of the firearm, not just the regulated pieces like the frame or the receiver, were destroyed through this gun buyback program. This issue, the potential issue that could arise, was kind of elucidated from an article, from an incident in like Michigan, where a lot of the component parts were being resold into the market and being used for ghost guns, the construction of ghost guns, which is untraceable firearms. So although this is the standard practice in Maryland, this just codifies that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, recognize the Senator from the 29th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the floor leader would yield.
Will the floor leader yield for a question? Senator may proceed.
Thank you. Does the bill address the need for law enforcement agencies to give them the opportunity to keep one of these firearms for training purposes?
No, it does not. And again, like I said, the standard practice right now is when they do these gun buybacks, they obliterate the entire firearm, unless it's a crime gun or subject to an investigation.
So if there's a firearm that is a unique firearm that has been manipulated so that when an officer or someone picks it up, it could discharge or hurt other people, there is no way that we could keep that firearm so that for training purposes we could teach other officers how to save themselves or save others?
Not if it comes through a gun buyback program, so no. And that's, again, the current practice as it stands today. And we didn't receive testimony as to whether law enforcement agencies or officers are being sufficiently trained on an anomalous firearm. It has not been something that they came in on. They did not weigh in on this. This is the standard practice anyway, so.
I'm familiar, and the question I have, we recovered with the department I worked with literally thousands of guns. And one of the issues that we were able to do was keep firearms like that. And then we were able to train those when we had young officers so that they were able to figure out how to make firearms safe. And I just think that the fact is, and when we look at our law enforcement officers, right, we should be able to have the ability, whether it be at the initial training academies, wherever, that we can actually train them on an actual firearm where they can look at it. That is an issue that I think that we are overlooking when we are looking at a bill like this.
Mr. President, if it's appropriate, may I ask a question of the
Senator, may proceed.
questioner? How many of those firearms are recovered through a gun buyback program, of those thousands that you're talking about?
So now, appreciate the question. I don't like the fact that you're calling me old because of the fact when I was doing it, there was no such thing as a gun back program.
So is it safe to say 0?
That's correct.
I have no more questions.
So, but the fact is, we would receive many guns back now through buyback because that didn't exist then.
Gun buybacks, though they do occur, are fairly rare. They don't occur that often, and when they do, I think these are very good rules of the road. But you could still any citizen could still turn in a firearm as long as it wasn't through this mechanism. The department would be able to keep the firearm.
So moving forward, when we talk about the financial burdens that many of our law enforcement agencies face, when you say that if a firearm is turned in, every part of that firearm has to be destroyed?
If it's through the gun buyback program.
So if a hunting rifle was turned in and it had a $5,000 or $10,000 Zeiss scope on top of it, that would also be destroyed mandatorily?
Well, I mean, I would hope that someone that owns that type of a caliber of a firearm would think to turn it in for money. They could sell it to an FFL legally and get money for that. I would want that $10,000. So I would hope that that person would understand not to do it through a gun buyback program and just go through an FFL through a normal process.
So a lot of people that turn guns into a gun buyback program, the little bit of knowledge that I have about it is somebody that is not that familiar with a firearm. So they wouldn't know that. My question is there any ability for the agency to recoup that if it had nothing to do with the firearm and the function of the gun whatsoever, such as a scope?
No, I mean, I would suspect that if someone had that caliber of firearm, they might have an inclination as to how expensive it was. But if that wasn't the case, we're just honoring their transaction. Now, these gun buybacks typically happen in certain areas of the state, in collaboration with nonprofits, advertised in a certain way, are mainly used to get guns that are either unregulated or unregistered, and off of the streets. And so if someone has that caliber of a firearm and they didn't know it, it seems like that would be a pretty far-fetched scenario, but
Thank you.
Possible.
Mr. President, I would ask to lay the bill over under the rule.
All right, the senator's motion is adopted. The bill and the amendments will lay over under the rule. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 455, Senator McKay, Security Guard Agencies, Special Police Officers, application for appointment, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsors, the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, colleagues, this bill authorizes the apply for the appointment of a special police officer known as an SPO, and includes the person that holds a valid license as a security guard agency in order to protect property owned or leased by its clients. There was one amendment, sponsor only. It did pass the committee. I move the adoption of a favorable committee report as amended.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 455 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 533, Senator Folden, Public Safety, Police Accountability, Time Limit for Filing Administrative Charges, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 533, regarding the time limit for filing administrative charges with law enforcement. The bill alters the time limit for filing these administrative charges in police discipline matters. In short, this bill will allow that if there is a complaint against a law enforcement officer involving the public in general, the 1 year and a day rule, that the charges must be added or presented within a year and a day and completed, requiring that the law enforcement agency file any administrative charges or investigation of alleged police misconduct that is not required to be reviewed by the Administrative Charges Committee within a year and a day as well. However, this is where the problem we've been experiencing, that law enforcement has been experiencing, is that if police misconduct is related to an activity that reasonably appears to be subject of a criminal investigation, an Administrative Charging Committee or law enforcement agency must file any administrative charges within 1 year and a day of the date of the law enforcement agency's determination that the matter is not related to criminal activity, the final disposition of any and all related criminal activity, and or the Administrative Charging Committee or law enforcement's receipt of the notice that the appropriate prosecutorial authority is declined to seek charges. There is one amendment that adds bill sponsors Mr. President, I move the adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or title? Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District has an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment being printed, coming up, so if I could hold over, maybe later in the calendar.
Can we special order to the end of the day? End of the day,
Yes.
does that work?
Yes.
Any objections? Without objection, we will special order. Yes, recognize the floor leader?
No, it's fine, Mr.
objections. All right. Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the end of the calendar. Or excuse me, at the end of the day. End of the day. We have third reader still. So, all right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 545, Senator James, Criminal Law, Child Pornography, Prohibitions and Penalties, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thematically, this bill is updating certain child pornography statutes to keep up and reflect that technology has facilitated an explosive rise in the number of images and now videos of the horrific crimes of child pornography, which are now rightfully and correctly understood to be child abuse and exploitation. The bill passed this body last year unanimously, and we have one committee amendment adding a majority of the committee members, and not surprisingly, it received a unanimous vote. So I move the committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Thank you.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 545 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Could we please ring the bells, Madam Clerk, and we are going to do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
All right, has everyone recorded their presence? We're getting there. All right. The clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We have third reading calendar number 10. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 92, Senator Quarterman, Peace Orders and Criminal Harassment, Intentional Visual Surveillance.
Senate Bill 92 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone should change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 92, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 202, Chair, Judicial Proceedings, Public Safety Statewide DNA Database, DNA Collection and Penalties Alterations.
Senate Bill 202 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 202, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 273, Senator M. Jackson, Peace Orders and Protective Orders, Military Protection Orders.
Senate Bill 273 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 273, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 334, Senator Waldstreicher, Criminal Law, Crimes of Malicious or Fraudulent Burning, Prohibitions and Penalties.
Senate Bill 334 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 334, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 348, Senator Love, Criminal Law, Visual Surveillance with prurient intent modifications.
Senate Bill 348 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, yes, recognized senator from Baltimore County is just 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Actually, last week, when the good senator had her first bill passed, we forgot to give her roses. So this is her second bill, but I thought we should acknowledge that. All right.
Ah, very good. Excellent. Very good. Very good. All right. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 348, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Very good. All right. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 356, Senator Smith, Public Health, Repeal of Prohibition on Transfer of Human Immunodeficiency Virus, Carlton R. Smith Act.
All right. Senate Bill 356 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 356, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 390, Senator Smith, Motor Vehicles, Speed Monitoring Systems, Statement and Certification Violations.
Senate Bill 390 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 390, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we've got third reading calendar number 11. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 68, Senator Brooks, Public Schools, Restorative Practices Schools, Comprehensive Plan.
Senate Bill 68 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 68, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 266, Chair, Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee, Local Comprehensive Planning and State Economic Growth, Resource Protection and Planning Policy, Planning Principles.
Senate Bill 266 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 266, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to special order calendar number 10. Clerk will read the calendar.
Executive Nominations Report Number 3. Question is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nominations of the executive?
All right, Senators, this is report number 3. Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a request to separate out nominee L7.
Nominee L7 will be removed. Senators, please take a look at the list. Are there any other nominees that senators wish to separate? If not, give them just a moment. All right, appears we are okay. All right, so the question before the body is report number 3, but not nominee L7. The question is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nominations of the executive? Any further discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, the Senate advises and consents affirmatively to the nominations of the executive. Let's call up the next order of business. All right. Question now before the body is on nominee L7. Will the Senate advise and consent affirmatively? Any discussion? If not, yes, Chair, recognize the senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe L7 once served in this body, and I think it's a tribute to acknowledge the good senator. And while I will never be able to follow in his footsteps because he's got like big feet, but hopefully I'll be up to the challenge. So thank you. Encourage a green vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Excellent. I was out that way this weekend, and so I was coming back and saw the highway. The Edwards Highway has been officially there. Very good. All right. Question on L7. I think we can call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, the Senate advises and consents affirmatively to executive nominee L7, our former colleague. All right, we have one more order of business. Do we have Senator from the 27th? Have we? Let's go ahead and call up the bill that was on special order to the end of the day today. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 533, Senator Folden, Public Safety Police Accountability Time Limit for Filing Administrative Charges. The bill is on second reading and open to amendment.
All right, Senator has an amendment for the bill. All right, it does not seem like we have the printed version, is that correct? Does the Senator wish to special order to the appropriate time tomorrow? First order? All right, the Senator want to make the motion, or?
Yes, we could special order until tomorrow. Sorry about that. I was trying to bring it up on my laptop.
All right, Senator moves to special order. Hear from the floor leader.
Seeing as how it's going to be a wonderfully friendly amendment, Mr. President, there's no objection.
No objections, all right, no objections. All right, we will special order the bill to the appropriate time tomorrow. All right, that does it. Desk is fully clear today. Let's go to committees, committee announcements. Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee will meet at 1 o'clock for 11 bills.
All right, Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hate to do this, but the committee is going to meet after session, let's say 11:45. We do need to do some voting. And then at 1 p.m. we have, I mentioned this last night, 14 bill hearings, 148 witnesses lined up today. So, Mr. President, thank you.
So that's funny. Yes, busy day, and actually it's a good note for Tripoli in particular. I mean, we're in a better spot on bill counts. Tripoli is totally and completely slammed right now. There's a lot of great bills that a lot of great bills may not make it this year. Just they're going to take work, but it is what it is. The committee is slammed, doing the best they can, and just doing phenomenal work. Just know it is, time is the enemy. So keep that in mind. Senator from Budget and Tax, Chair Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, starting at 1 o'clock, we have bill hearings, we have budget hearings, we have voting, and then we have capital budget subcommittee.
Excellent. All right. Busy day for Budget and Tax as well. We're in it, in the 40s. Yes, Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet today at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
Excellent. All right. Let's see. Other standing committees. Other standing committees. Select committees. Delegations. For the good of the order. Yes, Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. As everyone knows, we have our prayer and Bible study every morning at 8 o'clock in their room, but everybody will be getting a flyer. If you get your calendars out, there we go, bring them out. There we go. Mr. President, we have our legislative prayer breakfast. Will be March the 21st at 7:30 a.m., free for everyone. Our special keynote speaker will be the Baltimore Ravens chaplain, Jonathan Shelton. He will be speaking for us that morning, and also we'll have the Naval Academy Ensemble will be there to sing for us. And we're trying to get another very special person to come as well. And if he does, we'll give you that announcement. But if you could make it that morning, it will be at the Miller building. So again, everybody will be getting a flyer, and I hope you can come. Thank you, Mr. President.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator. Quick note on executive nominations. Folks have been asking where the names are in the system. It's in the Other tab on the floor system. So if senators go to the Other tab, it will be in there for executive nominations where you can see the electronic list of nominees. So, All right, anything else for the good of the order? If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 42 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Wednesday, February 19th at 10
a.m. Without objection, so ordered. Be safe. See you all tomorrow.